It's Friday, May 20. In the headlines, indefinite mask mandate for schools. Political ombudsman launches Civic education handbook and calls to end domestic child abuse. Regionally, trade talks in Guyana at the Agri-Investment Forum and Expo. And in sports, $12 million for Netball Jamaica. This is the weekend news on PBC Jamaica. I am Simone Absalom Gale. The Ministry of Education and Youth has mandated the wearing of masks in schools until further advised. Effective immediately, students and staff who turn up to school without a mask should not be denied access, but should be assisted with a mask to facilitate teaching and learning. In a bulletin on Thursday, May 19, the ministry said that the mask mandate is in response to the rise in the coronavirus infection rate. School administrators have been reporting an increase in suspected and confirmed COVID-19 cases among staff and students.
During the month of May, when we looked at the first week in May, 138 suspected or confirmed cases came to our attention. Of that number, 99 were suspected among students, with 22 confirmed as positive. 8 were suspected and 7 positive were reported among teachers.
Education Minister Favour Williams speaking at a virtual COVID-19 update held by the Ministry of Health and Wellness this week. In the bulletin, the ministry says this is to provide for the continuation of learning and sanitization of classrooms and buildings, observation of quarantine standards, as well as for affected persons to be tested and treated accordingly. It says before a decision is taken to revert to remote learning, the principal and board chairman must consult with the regional director or educational officer for approval and guidance. Jamaica has called on Commonwealth countries to continue to engage in partnership and enhance coordination in the public health interest. This was the message from Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Bessessa Mackenzie to the 34th Annual Commonwealth Health Ministers meeting, which ended on Thursday. She says at all phases of Jamaica's response to COVID-19, public, private, local and global partnerships were especially valuable for resource mobilization. In a joint statement, the ministers outlined key priorities in tackling the complex health challenges following the COVID-19 pandemic. The ministers committed to working together to implement robust national responses to overcome the current pandemic and prepare and prevent future pandemics. They welcomed the signing of a memorandum of understanding with the World Health Organization, WHO, which will work to support accelerating the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, addressing vaccine inequity, strengthening digital health systems, and advancing universal health coverage and global health security. The theme for this year's meeting, which was held virtually, was the road to COVID-19 recovery, lessons learned for building health system resilience to advance UHC and health security in the Commonwealth. The Child Protection and Family Planning Agency, CPFSA, reported 9,800 cases of domestic abuse in 2020. The following year, the agency made headlines when disclosing that 700 to 800 cases of domestic violence against children were reported monthly during the pandemic. Now, in 2022, citizens are taking to the streets in protest in hopes of putting an end to the heinous acts. Our news team caught up with one group at Matilda's Corner in St. Andrew. More in this report.
University Director of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies at the University of the West Indies, Professor Opal Palmer Agdisa, has expressed her thoughts on the importance of ending the cycle, utilizing the time-old adage of "it takes a village to raise a child."
We are protesting, or rather advocating, because if you look at the data, Jamaican children are in crisis. We are not protecting them. There have been numerous incidents of rape, incest, physical abuse, and we have to protect our children, because it's not just enough to say they are the future. What is the future we want for our society if our children are being harmed? And this creates tremendous psychological and emotional harm that they take with them for the rest of their lives. So it's about bringing awareness so that each of us understand we have to be a village for our children.
Professor Adisa made it clear that a worthy cause is not without its challenges. She spoke quite frankly about the financial issues hindering the much-needed publicity to the issue.
The challenges is really getting support. You know, you need to get t-shirts, you need to get placards, you need to get signs, you need to get media, and that's a very difficult thing. I mean, a lot of this making of these placards and t-shirts I've done out of pocket. We want to build awareness in each parish. Ruth and I want to do training in terms of so that each community has trained youth who can speak to this issue and go into the community so that this is not just a one-day thing.
Child advocate affiliated with Professor Adisa, Sky Thompson, who headed a second group of protesters in a different location at Duke Street in downtown Kingston, said one major issue she observed in the fight is a lack of consideration among some members of the public.
They were arguing that men are also abused, because sometimes we say women and children, so they're like men are abused too, and some of them look away and they're arguing because that is showing that there's actually a problem, because we're so desensitized to injustice to our children that it's like, why are you guys out here talking about children? They're children, so there's definitely a need for this. We have to address it, and we have to let them know it is not okay to abuse our children. Come on, they're the future. We have to start now, and we have to start at the grassroots.
May on the Island is celebrated as Child's Month. Jamaica's theme for 2022 is Listen Up, Children's Voices Matter. Since the start of the month, public officials and advocacy groups have raised their voice to bring awareness to the issue and the importance of children's rights. Raquel Robinson reporting for the news on PBCJ.
The Office of the Political Ombudsman has launched a new civic education handbook. During the virtual event, Political Ombudsman Donna Parchment Brown says the civic education handbook introduces Jamaicans to the importance of civic participation.
We hope this beautiful, user-friendly, easy-to-handle book will inspire and equip you to be a more active player and expert on Jamaica land we love, including the work of your political ombudsman and the Agreement and Declaration on Political Conduct.
The handbook includes a brief look at the Jamaican Constitution, along with insights on the pillars of good governance and key institutions which assist in the smooth operation of the country's affairs. A summary at the end of each chapter, along with interactive activities, will help the reader with self-assessment or sharing knowledge with others. Assistant Chief Education Officer in the Curriculum Unit at the Ministry of Education and Youth, Dr. Clover Hamilton Flowers, says the publication is timely.
It's also about exposing them to what governance is all about, and to help them to recognize the relationship between being a citizen and the responsibilities and roles of government. It is a well-timed and excellent move towards helping to contribute to civic awareness and overall involvement as we harness our efforts together to help to instill in our students the kind of dispositions that are necessary for them to recognize that as fellow Jamaicans, they too have a great contribution to make to nation building.
The Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, has taken issue with the Jamaica Teaching Council bill, now before Parliament. The JTA noted that the bill's definition of a teacher includes a requirement that persons have a bachelor's degree or equivalent qualification. The matter was discussed at a joint select committee on the Jamaica Teaching Council Act 2022 at Gordon House on Thursday.
If we now put this bill into law today, it would in effect wipe out all the teachers we currently have with a diploma. It will wipe out all the specialist 1, the specialist 2.
I mean, this is a headline that's going to be out there on this bill. Seriously, we're having a serious debate here, and you know that's not the intent of the bill.
Madam Chair, I'm not speaking
to... But when you telegraph that to Jamaicans and to other teachers, I have to wonder, what is the message? What's the underlying message that you want teachers to get?
JTA's attorney, Julian Mott, had a suggestion.
The requirement for a bachelor's degree to enter the teaching profession and to retain one's status is a very noble position to hold. But given where we are in our education system, it would best be approached as a gradual process and not with the stroke of a pen.
JTA President Winston Smith. Education Minister Favour Williams, who chaired the joint committee meeting, said Mr. Smith's characterization of the bill was sending the wrong message to Jamaicans. For your information, a bill is an act of parliament in draft, but no bill can become law until it is approved by the Houses of Parliament and receives the formal assent of the Governor-General. At the committee stage, the bill is considered in a very close detail. Every clause is carefully examined, and amendments to the bill may then be moved and voted upon. The Bank of Jamaica hiked its interest rate to 5%. We get this story and find out what it means for you, plus your regular market updates from Denita Rodney in this business report.
During a press conference, newly elected president of the Insurance Association of Jamaica, Sharon Donaldson, said that while it may not look like it, the performance of the insurance industry is influenced by outside factors.
Our performance is largely influenced by issues outside of our control. And notwithstanding, we still have to find a workable mechanism to be able to deliver on what we have promised, because in truth and in fact, the insurance product is a promise. It's a promise that we take your money and in return, we will pay your losses when brought to our attention, provided they are within the scope of your policy.
Ms. Donaldson said that one of such factors is known as the reinsurance partners.
Those members that are in partnership with us, we do not necessarily control the level of relationship with them. We call them our reinsurance partners. In truth and in fact, we are able to write multiples of our balance sheet net worth, simply because we have these partners who have loaned to us their capital and require from us a return on that capital. And as a result of that, they tend to set the price at which we write. In addition to that, when we have catastrophe losses in other parts of the world, even though we have not suffered any losses in this region, it doesn't matter. Because insurance is a pool, it means that us in this region needs to step in and pay for that. And that could lead to rising costs, which again, as I've said, is somewhat outside of our control, because we really don't control the climatic issues that will drive up the frequency of the catastrophes that we actually encounter.
Another factor was insurance claims.
Secondly, we have insureds and claims, and the rising cost of claims we could say that it is attributed to or it is as a result of a frequency of claims, so we now have more claims, and it is also, even without the frequency of claims, it is the average cost of claims. So as inflation goes up, claims costs will go up.
Despite that, Ms. Donaldson believes that the industry did well working through the pandemic.
I think last year and the year before, I think we did a fairly good job in working through the pandemic. Notwithstanding this very new issue to everyone, nobody gave us any warning that it was coming, and certainly the pandemic came without any instructions at all as to how we were to handle it. But I think the industry has been nimble enough, and irrespective of all that happened, the many lockdowns, we're still able to provide our insureds with service. And I would say, despite the pandemic year, both as it affects health in general, maybe health more than ourselves, we managed to produced a reasonable return on equity so we can continue to function in the industry and provide services for all our insurers and all our stakeholders.
Borrowers will face higher lending rates as the Bank of Jamaica hiked its policy rate to 5%. The announcement was made on Thursday and is set to take effect on Friday. The BOJ says the rate was adjusted in a bid to tame inflation and that it plans to continue other measures to reduce spending and maintain stability in the foreign exchange market. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, May 19, the US dollar sold for an average of $155.43. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $122.44. The pound sterling traded for $194.09, and the euro sold for an average of $166.81. The following reflects the movement of the JSE indices in Thursday's trading session. The JSE index advanced by 1,037 points to close at over 300,000 units. The junior market index advanced by 25 points to close at over 4,000 units. The combined market index advanced by 1,196 points to close at over 400,000 units. And the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by 1,595 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 107 stocks, of which 40 advanced, 48 declined, and 19 traded firm. Stocks advanced for Barita Investments Limited, Blue Power Group Limited, and Caribbean Cement Company Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 1834 Investments Limited, and Access Financial Services Limited. Trading firm were CAC 2000 9.5% cumulative redeemable preference shares, Cargo Handlers Limited, and Equity Line Mortgage Investments Corporation preferred shares. The following companies represent the overall volume leaders: Derrimont Trading Company Limited with over 11 million shares, Lumber Depot Limited, and QWI Investments Limited with over 1 million shares. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Clico Investment Fund was the sole security trading over 26,000 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Government of Barbados Bond Series B was the volume leader with over 8 million shares, followed by First Caribbean International Bank, which traded 60 shares. European countries have committed to phasing out Russian natural gas following Russia's war with Ukraine. More from Al Jazeera News.
On a windy day in May, Hawkshiel may seem like a backwater, far from Germany's big towns and cities. And yet, this deep-sea port is at the centre of this country's bid to wean itself off Russian fossil fuels. For here, a liquid natural gas terminal is to be built, one of several such installations, ready, potentially, to receive shipments of LNG from Qatar and elsewhere.
At the end of the winter, the storage facilities would be empty, but we would then have 2 more LNG terminals so we could fill them immediately again. That's the plan to also become independent from Russia's blackmail. Hopefully it will work out, but a day like today makes me confident that it can work.
But building new LNG terminals cannot cover all of Germany's energy needs, most of which have been supplied by Russia for many years. In March, Deputy Chancellor Robert Habeck was in Qatar to negotiate a deal for its LNG, a deal which could only replace some of the Russian supply.
You would have to substitute roughly 50 billion cubic meters of natural pipeline gas per year. And the LNG terminals, the FSRUs that are being contracted or that have been contracted, they would accommodate maybe a fifth of that.
There are some aspects of the potential deal for Qatari LNG which are proving problematic. The government in Doha wants it to run for 20 years and is insisting on what's called a destination clause, effectively meaning Germany would not be able to reroute some of it to EU partners, which it does currently with Russian gas. And it would be tying ministers in Berlin to fossil fuels for another 20 years, at a time when they've been aiming to become carbon neutral.
everyone knows that Russian gas is way cheaper than LNG gas from wherever in the world. So therefore, the price issue will definitely come, and this is a minus for politicians to tell their public, okay, you need to pay more actually for your energy. But then, of course, the dependency on fossil plus the human rights aspect will be a huge burden for Minister Habeck.
When the Emir of Qatar meets government leaders here on Friday, there will doubtless be expressions of friendship. But behind the scenes, there will be some serious discussion, with a few difficult questions to be answered. Dominic Kane, Al Jazeera, Berlin.
In market data for oil prices were largely steady this morning and on course for a little change on the week as a planned European ban on Russian oil balanced out investor concerns about weakening economic growth hitting demand. Brent futures were up 49 cents or 0.4% to $112.53 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude rose 24 cents or 0.2% to $112.45 a barrel. And that was the Weekend Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, speaking at the Agri-Investment Forum and Expo, Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley called on CARICOM heads of government to accept CARICOM as a proper single market and economy. More from TTT Live.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is calling on CARICOM heads of government to accept CARICOM as a proper single market and economy. At the opening ceremony of the Agri-Investment Forum and Expo, the Prime Minister said a lot of the objectives mentioned at the regional meeting will not be realized if CARICOM is still operating on the basis of you versus me and mine versus yours.
Why do you think President Skerritt is asking you today that he could sell avocado to Europe, but he can't sell it down the road, 100 miles down the road? Why do you think we have so many possibilities of production within a region, COVID or no COVID, but there's no easy movement of these products? A lot of it is the protection of the status quo.
Prime Minister Rowley told regional leaders we must do what has to be done to increase food production, but warned that increase in production is going to disturb the status quo of the current arrangements. He said there must also be proper transportation arrangements and proper storage for the goods, and also offered Trinidad and Tobago's expertise in setting up a sustainable business model.
Nobody is going to give us food when food is in short supply. So if we don't put arrangements in place to ensure that whatever the weather, there is food for our people, then who can we blame? We have to do it now, so that when the next time it happens, we will be in a better position, not a worse position.
In Belize, as countries of the Caribbean join together in fervent efforts to boost regional food production, the bloc's current chairman, John Bersino, has called on Caribbean countries to remove trade barriers that constrain food security efforts. The CARICOM head joined other CARICOM leaders in Guyana for the Agri-Investment Forum and Expo. Channel 5 Belize has the story.
Prime Minister John Bersino is currently in Georgetown, Guyana for the CARICOM Agri-Investment Forum and Expo, which is being held today through to Saturday. It is being held under the theme Investing in Vision 25 by 2025. During the forum, the region's ability to ensure food security despite issues of the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and disruptions in the global supply chain was discussed. Today, PM Bersino was among the CARICOM leaders who spoke at the forum. The PM spoke about breaking down trade barriers within the region. Here's an excerpt from his speech.
As a CARICOM region, we must do better to remove those technical barriers to trade that most of us impose on each other. Let us instead use our efforts and energies to adopt policies to support the growth of the agro-productive sector, improve market facilitation, and develop intra-regional transportation. It is, in effect, a plan which intends to see our region reduce its dependency on food imports and products by 25% over the next 3.5 years. To do this, we, the member states that make up CARICOM, will have to work with our agro-producers to foster accelerated and targeted investment in food production. During our last CARICOM heads of government meeting, we acknowledged that our agri-food sector accounts for more than 20% employment in the region. Like Belize, Guyana is blessed with abundant agricultural land and are people able and capable of tilling the fertile soil. This is why we are so excited about the leadership role President Ali is playing as the lead for agriculture and food security.
In Guyana, during a virtual forum held on Wednesday, Human Development Program leader of the World Bank has estimated that the attendance at schools for a number of Guyanese school children during the COVID-19 pandemic dropped by about 1/3, signaling the need for interventions to advance learning recovery efforts. Vashani reports.
If you compare the beginning of the pandemic with just over a year later, in May or July of 2021, our teams have estimated about 1 in 4 students were not actively engaged in any learning activity just over a year later, despite the availability of online learning otherwise. And we also see significant inequalities among students and among different groups, and that were disproportionately affected by attendance, with disadvantaged students particularly facing challenges with learning and attendance. In Guyana, there's almost a 1/3 drop in attendance by the peak of the pandemic.
That was Tim Johnson, the Human Development Program leader at the World Bank. On Wednesday, during a virtual forum, he outlined the learning losses estimated for Latin America and the Caribbean during the COVID-19 pandemic. And learners in Guyana, for a variety of reasons, were among those worst affected. Cognizant of these losses and their potential long-term impact, however, Minister of Education Priya Manikchan told the forum about the various interventions rolled out.
We prepared curriculum-aligned teacher-crafted worksheets, so we went back to paper by grade level for mass distribution. We utilized the Ministry of Education's main distance education vehicles, television via our education channel, the learning channel, and radio. We went back to radio because there are still some places in Guyana where radio is the only access to any kind of technology that people have. Facilitating technology-assisted learning and education management, we provided smart spaces in schools with a setup of 9 smart classrooms and the provision of 1,053 technological inputs.
At the forum, it was unanimously agreed that recovery efforts must be a central focus, particularly now that schools have reopened. Johnson said the World Bank suggests that back-to-school programs be encouraged, children's learning should be assessed regularly, and their psychosocial well-being should be supported. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Vishani Raghavir.
In sports, Netball Jamaica is set to receive $12 million from the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport to host the America's Netball World Cup qualifier for the 2023 Netball World Cup. Portfolio Minister Olivia Grange says the money will cover team preparation, transportation and the cost of rental of the National Indoor Sports Center, where the qualifier will take place from October 16 to October 21, 2022. 10 teams will be playing in the qualifier for the 2 remaining places that would see them competing in the World Cup. Jamaica is already qualified by virtue of its number 4 world ranking. Minister Grange was speaking at the launch of the America's Netball World Cup qualifier, for which she has also accepted Netball Jamaica's invitation to be the official patron. That's all we have for the local and regional news. Before we go, though, let's hear what's happening on the entertainment scene from Alicia Steele. Hey, Alicia.
Hi, Simone. On this week's entertainment recap, we showcase Shensea's outfit at the Billboard's Music Award. Yeah, the end of the Irish and Chin World Clash, birthday shoutouts, new music, and a whole heap more. So join us this Saturday at 8:30 p.m. on PBC Jamaica for entertainment recap with your girl, Alicia.
Thanks, Alicia. And that's the news on PBC Jamaica. Thanks so much for watching.